and action. And welcome everybody. Welcome to PnP Weekly. It is episode 141. It is 1st of November 2021. And in the PnP Weekly, I always talk about the latest on the Microsoft 365 platform as a whole. So typically we have a visitor like today, and we'll have Joel Rodrigues he's actually independent contractor, but working actively also with Storm Technologies. And then we'll cover through the latest articles of the week from Microsoft and the community, of raising those interesting ones for discussion. Not that many news actually this week. So, well, kind of a teaser news for Ignite, which is happening this week as well, depending on when you're watching this video or listening to the podcast. But other than that, it's been pretty silent. I guess everybody's busy. This is that time of the year that in the US, you're kind of jumping, we have a deadline. Deadline is in Thanksgiving because US deadlines are in Thanksgiving. And then in Europe, deadlines are always in the December timeframe, pretty much. So
yeah. Yeah, and I guess maybe it just, this one of these waves where I experience it basically the same way. Like I have times where I don't have any room to breathe. I just have work. Like you have work and nothing else fits. And then at some point, like you ship things you need to do, and then you're done to the point where it's like, hey, what am I going to do next? Because you were so busy that you didn't have time to even think, what will you do next? And then you shipped, and you're like, what is next?
Yeah.
So maybe we were just on top of this wave, people are busy by coincidence, or maybe like trying to get some more room before Ignite this week so that they will be able to tune in and so forth. So maybe that is also an aspect. And there was GitHub event the other day too. So, maybe people spend some time on that. So, I mean, there are so many things going on that maybe it's just how you choose to allocate the little time outside your work you have available.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anyway, let's actually do this in a way that let's actually jump again to first on the visitor. So Joel Rodrigues, he's a Office developer MVP, and we're going to have a talk about his career transition from Portugal to UK and some of the, let's say, cultural differences on that as well. Good discussion, because we already did it, so we already know what's been discussed, but we'll be good. So let's jump on that interview, and then we'll go back on the articles after that. So welcome, Joel, joining us on today. It is PnP Weekly episode 141. I needed to check from the title because I can't remember those things, which is actually pretty cool. Like, once again, it's pretty cool to have this many episodes already created. And we are not even close to stop yet. Right, Waldek?
No, we're not.
Okay. Anyway, this time... This time we have Joel Rodrigues joining us from UK, and let's talk about his career and let's say the past in a second. What I have no idea what I'm. Dad. Okay, so Joel, can you talk about who you are and what are you doing for living?
Yes, so my name is Joel Rodrigues. I'm Portuguese. That's how you pronounce it correctly. But not that it matters, because I moved to the UK 8 years ago and no one does it. They will call me all sorts of things, and I will just move on.
They will call me all sorts of things, dude.
Well,
bloke.
Not that. So I do basically SharePoint development since 2009. That's all I did since I finished uni. Actually, the same day I finished, I started as a SharePoint developer. So I finished in the morning. After lunch, I started working as a SharePoint developer, and that's been it since that then. So
that was from a SharePoint university, right? Just kidding.
I wouldn't be here if my background was that. I was joking. But then, I worked with the SharePoint on-prem, and then SharePoint Online came in. I moved along. I was already in UK by then. And now it's just extending a little bit into Office, more teams, but still focused mostly around SharePoint.
Yeah.
And it can be anything from front end with SPFX to back end, things like Azure Functions. Whatever the solutions need.
Yeah. Now, you just to come back on that, you graduated from university in the UK, right?
No, in Portugal.
In Portugal, but then you moved to the UK at some point.
Yeah, I worked in Portugal for around 3.5 years. Then I just thought, well, let's go for a change, look for a bigger market, trying to get more challenging projects, and end up landing here.
Well, I guess the most important thing to ask, did it work?
Yeah. So I moved here already with a job, start working straight away. Then some years later, I started working. So I was working on the company where I'm based. Then I started working for another company, which was far south, 2 hours away. So I would go there maybe once every 2 weeks or something like that. So it was already remote. And then at some point, just 2.5 years later or something like that, I ended up working for Storm Technology, which is based in Ireland. So I work fully remote now. I go there very rarely, and I don't go there since the pandemic started, actually. But I'm a dev, so it's fine mostly.
Yeah, so the situation isn't anything unique for you. Basically, it's almost the same as for me. And Waldek, you were working remotely as well whenever the situation started. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. But I mean, it's interesting, right? Because like I was at the Microsoft Office in the past, but not since I joined. To be honest, I don't even have a badge. Because why? Like I could swipe the badge every day on my door here at home, but that wouldn't make any sense, right? So no, I totally align with that.
Yeah. But of course, it is initially it's probably a relatively big change, but then when you get used to it, hey, it is what it is, and making sure that you have the right offices and ergonomics and everything else. And then, like in your case, you've been working from home for years, so probably have invested on a proper ergonomics and chairs and all of that. Now, just out of curiosity, what's the any kind of huge cultural differences when you were moving from Portugal to UK? So like, oh my God, I didn't know that this is a case in UK.
Where do I start?
The breakfast. Yeah. Oh my God.
It's a long list, but the one that made me the biggest impact on me was on my first day. I was just focused on some things, trying to get my head around everything. And when I realized it was like 5:15, and I looked at the office and it was pretty much empty. And I was like, what happened? And I turned to the closest guy and I asked him, where did everyone go? And he looked at me like, what do you mean? It was like, it's 5:15, where did everyone go? It was like, they went home. And I was like, oh, okay. Because in Portugal, we have that culture of staying a bit longer. Yeah. It was not usual to just go to 5 p.m. and just leave, and we'll probably try to finish whatever you're doing and then leave. I guess that's one of the most things. And in the UK, it's a lot more political, not in politics, but there's a lot more things going on around decisions and all that, which I will easily live with without.
That's interesting, Sven. I think it's actually kind of a similar thing in Scandinavia as well. So because there's a classic joke in Finland which is like, oh, it's 4 p.m. Bye-bye. And then whatever you're doing, and it's just leaving. Of course, it's not necessarily the case in IT. Again, and depending on a company, depending on a person, it's not like 4 p.m. is like morning for me when I start working. But because of the time zone switched. So anyway, and now coming back on the cultural thing again and the UK, just out of curiosity as well. So you've been out there for 8 years, I think you said before we started recording, which is actually pretty cool. Are you a citizen already, or have you applied to citizen? And how did the Brexit change anything? Have you been on your toes? Like, are they going to throw me out here, or is the situation cleared now?
In theory, I have the same rights I had before Brexit because I was already here before. Let's see if it stays like that. But no, I haven't applied to citizenship because at the moment, I don't think it would give me anything that I don't have now.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Brexit really didn't change the situation too bad. So, but it's still kind of an unclear situation, isn't it? So, but yeah, everything is pretty unclear.
Yeah.
Will you have food for Christmas? Has the petrol shortage already sorted out? Just out of curiosity, they haven't actually aired that in news anymore.
Petrol seems like that, even though they're probably just trying to rationalize the drivers now and making them use them for the high priority stuff. For Christmas, hopefully I'm not here.
Oh, you'll be flying back to Portugal.
I hope I can see my family finally.
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. So yeah, it's just it's been interesting to read the news in the UK. Just for those who are watching this maybe later on, but that this was the time when they had the petrol shortage and all of that stuff, and it's been pretty wild to see all of that stuff. So it's just something to follow up. Now, Joel, you are also an MVP. You're Office Developer MVP in the Microsoft. What are the Microsoft Valued Professional? I think isn't that
most valued professional? Yeah, Microsoft Most Valued Professional.
But wouldn't that then be MM? Never.
Your Microsoft MVP.
Valuable.
Yeah, fair point.
Most valuable professional. Yeah.
MVP then. Just kidding.
MS MVP, MSFT MVP.
Yes, exactly.
Pick your acronym.
So, can you talk about a bit? How did you get to be an MVP, and why is this a thing for you? Or is it a thing for you? Is it something which you always wanted to be, or what's your thoughts on that?
So I think it happened a bit more because I will start getting involved in the community and contributing, and then I start blogging as well because I wanted to share more, even though I don't blog now for 6 months because I've been really struggling with time. But I think it was more a combination of many things. So the contributions, blogging, and also conference sessions, and all together, I guess it just happened.
Yeah.
It was never really an objective. So I remember a long time ago when I started contributing, someone asked me the question like, "Oh, are you aiming to be an MVP, or are you looking into that?" And I never thought about that before, but someone on Twitter messaged me, and I started thinking like, "Oh, how does that even work? I don't know anything about that." And then I spoke to one guy that used to be a SharePoint MVP at the time that worked with me, and he just told me, just don't think about it. It may happen or not. Don't ever think about it as an objective. And I just completely forgot about it. And I think it was the best thing he could ever tell me, because now that I'm on the other side, that's definitely the best advice. Never ever set it as an objective, because it doesn't even depend even on how many things you do. It depends on a lot of things that, like, I don't think the criteria is actually public. So it may depend on other things that are not just the contributions. So I don't think it's really worth looking at things that way. Just do it because you enjoy it, and it may happen or not, but
and I think that's the right way of approaching things, and then creating a sustainable kind of a way of not just aiming to get it and then drop everything, rather than just, okay, it's a working lifestyle of sharing, and typically that helps on getting to MVP. So helping others and sharing and blocking, and you've been actually pretty active on the PnP M365 the platform community side of the house. Can you talk about bits what you've been doing there that relates on the controls, right? Recently, and you did some samples and all of that one in the past as well.
Yeah. So just a little thing I wanted to mention also on the MVP thing. You always get the community to recognize your contributions, and that is worth more, in my opinion, than the other one, because the community knowing you by your contributions, I think it's a good thing. And if you can just carry on doing it, you will end up building that trust with everyone around. On the contribution side, yes. So Ilyu and Alex invited me to help on the PnP control side of things to help them maintain. Even though the last few weeks it's been really hard, and I see the pull requests piling up, and I just think, oh my god, I need to do more.
It's a positive problem,
no
right?
Pressure, no pressure.
Yeah, it's like trying to walk really slowly on escalator, and it just keeps moving and moving, and you never move off your place because the issues keep piling up, and you just bring them down. The next day they up again. But it's a good thing. It means that it's active. So yeah, recently I've been trying to focus all the time I have there because we have 150 or around issues open at the moment. We have 5 or 6 PRs open, and we just need to bring those numbers down whenever we can. In the past, I think my first contribution may have been, well, there has been little ones before, but maybe on the samples side of the house, while I was doing things like proof of concepts for clients, or sometimes just abstracting some things I did for clients into very simple solutions and sharing it. Some bug fixes every now and then on other things. I think one I never contributed to was PnP Powershell. I did raise things like issues or posted comments on the issues, but I never, I think, did a pull request. I may have done one, I think, which was wrong. It was like fixing a documentation, and the documentation was actually auto-generated, so it just got closed.
It doesn't matter. A fix is a fix.
A fix is a fix, and contribution is a contribution. So,
but yeah, I think mostly done on the client side, BMPjs as well. A few minor things, I think, on generator. But every time I use something on a project and I need to extend it, I try to always do it so I can just do a PR when I'm done with it.
So So and that comes back on. That comes back on the sharing is mentality, of course. But why are you doing this? And we keep on asking this question from all of the community and MVPs in the show as well, because of course there's
why open source?
One side of some of the people are basically saying you're giving away for free. You're basically giving away for your IP, your time for other people to benefit for free. Why on earth would you doing this?
Because in 2015 I went to my first conference, technical conference in London, and you two were there. And on the last day, I saw a session on the provisioning engine that you did there, a full day, I think it was a full day training day on the provisioning engine where I saw it for the first time. And that was mainly the big trigger for me. I was already slightly engaged with the community, but I didn't have anything like social profiles or anything. I was just on the background, like checking every week. I will see the recordings and videos, blogs, following blogs from all over the place. But then when I went to the conference and saw the provisioning engine for real, I was like, I need to get more involved with this. This is the right thing to do. Like everyone is building around it, and we are just working in silos on small teams. It doesn't make any sense. Everyone is building the same thing, just on separate offices where we can just build the same thing and make it better. So why not do it? And then I realized I need to force myself into this mentality because that's just the right one. Yeah. It was not easy, but with time.
So that was exactly something I wanted to ask, right? So how did you experience your first PR? Like submitting your code in the open to someone else who's going to go through it, judge it, have an opinion about in the open. How did you experience that?
The first PR was update to documentation of, I can't remember the name. It was a provisioning solution that I think Paulo built based on the PnP provisioning engine. So it was a full
partner. What was it?
Partner Pack.
Partner Pack. Yes. I think it was Partner Pack, something like that. Yes.
Partner kits. Partner.
Yeah.
I tried to install it, and I got stuck for 2 or 3 hours because I did a small mistake registering the app, something on the manifest, if I'm not wrong. So I did a PR just to add like a note on the documentation to say, be aware of this. I think it was the URL have to end with a slash or could not end with a slash, something like that. It took me hours to figure out what the hell was going on. So I did the PR, and as soon as I pressed the button, I thought, this is really stupid. It's just like one little note, which I should anyway, but I didn't. And I was like, yeah, but someone will be in the same situation as me for sure. It's like a very simple mistake to make. And I thought, and then it got approved. And I thought, oh, that's okay. I can try this more times.
It was PnP Partner Pack. Yes, that's what it was. So yeah. So, but yeah, so I think that's actually quite often a lot of people go through this. Well, this is so simple. Why would I? So, is it worthwhile for me to even submit that? But that's the one thing. It's just like absolutely. It's every single comma matters. Every single contribution matters because that could be a critical piece for the next person, and then they can get past that, and then they will find another issue or whatever, and then it's all about building that knowledge together because then everybody wins rather than having massive competition because that doesn't benefit anybody. So I'm not gonna tell anybody.
And also another thing is like exactly the experience you had, right? I mean, you ran something, it didn't work, you were stuck. You were stuck for hours. And it's exactly that, right? Because if a tool or something is being built by folks who use it day in, day out, they know the caveats. It's in their head. So by extent, they will never come across them, right? So for them, it makes perfect sense. Like they aren't even aware of them because they know them. Yeah. But then someone new comes in and they don't know. Like every day, there are new folks who start, right, doing stuff. They come in, they don't have the, the intricacies, caveats, experience, and they start and they stuck. And that's the first experience that they have, right? So actually being new puts you here in an advantage that you can help folks like you, folks who start even more because you have this fresh eyes. You look at it as like, hey, this isn't clear. This isn't right. Like you asked me to put, how do I get like, what is a token? Where do I get
the
it
token?
From?
Exactly.
And there are folks who know like, token. Yeah, but there are like for every one person that knows, there's 9 who don't, right? And having these fresh eyes is actually a benefit here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, now that you're wondering the PnP Partner Pack, I'm just watching that. That was an interesting idea as well. But hey, now it has been archived already, so we need to clean up some of the historical things as well. So that's one of the challenges.
Revive the Partner Pack.
Go.
No.
But coming back on what you're doing, for example, in the controls, it's one of those interesting challenges that when you start building the open source initiatives and project and everything else, you're just hoping that somebody will catch it. And then all of a sudden, when somebody starts using that and it catches on usage, then the issue list goes down, then the pull requests go down. And it's an interesting positive challenge, which is like, well, how do I deal with this now, because now it's really catching. So how are you actually dealing with that mentality? How are you balancing out let's say, oh my god, the stress on there, but then you have the daytime work? Is there a conflict of interest somewhere in there, or is it just, hey, we're hobbies, and anyway in UK everybody goes home at 5 p.m, so there's plenty of time?
So yeah, it's a bit challenging because I work for Storm as a contractor, and I also have other clients outside, which I often work, well, not whenever I have work on later in the night or sometimes weekends. So the demand for my time is a bit high.
Yeah.
And I generally do the work on the controls when I just go to that stage where, no, that's enough for the week. I won't do any more work, even though sometimes it's there waiting for me. It's like, no, that will have to wait the next week, and I will just do anything completely outside of stress. So for me, it's actually completely stress-free, unless I accept the PR, which I didn't test properly, and then I find a bug. And then you just go.
Well, then you send a PR and you fix it.
Yeah,
that's the way it was. Like you know what you know. Yeah, or don't, or you just patch it.
Yeah, but I then immediately switch into that. What if someone installs the beta straight away?
Yeah,
it just happened to install the beta version straight away. So I just try to fix it straight away. But other than that, yeah, that's like my place where it doesn't really stress me at all. I do it on my own time, on my own speed, whenever I can. So, and I think most people understand that. They don't submit a PR and then they just go there. Oh, can you just do it? Just approve this, or when are we going to fix this or that? We sometimes get those comments. We need to remind people that everything is done outside of hours for free, and they need to be patient, or they can get more involved and actually help, which we will really appreciate. Instead of complaining, oh, when is this issue going to be resolved? We will love if you submit a PR and help us solve it. And we won't judge you by the quality of your code as well. So that is not a thing where we don't sit in the background and say, oh, have you seen this PR? It looks so crap. That doesn't happen. We really appreciate it. Every control has a completely different code style, or similar, but on its way unique because it was done by a different person and they just code differently. And you can do the things on your way. You, of course, try to align as much as we can with what is there, but no one will judge you if you do things differently.
Coming back on the let's say the stress-free thing, I think Waldek, you've been talking about that quite a lot. That it's the CLI for Microsoft 365 was just you have your work and then you have your actual thing, and then hey, I want to do something stress-free. It's just see how things can be actually generated. Is it stress-free for you?
So no, it's not. Of course, it isn't, right? Because at some point you create expectations that is there, right? That it works, and it is exactly this, as you said, this battle in a way for the balance. On one hand, you create something, and you're like, when will people pick it up? And then nobody cares. No one picks it up, and then people do, and it's like, oh crap, people picked it up, and now you need to do stuff, right? So it's kind of this two, like, be careful what you wish for. And I guess there is the big advantage that start thinking about the scale from day one. Like, even if it's just a start, just grab someone else so that it's never just you. Have someone else, because that person, like, if you're ill, away, busy, whatever, there's always someone else. And the odds that two people are away at the same time,
or offer somebody else help, that's a good way of approaching as well. So like Joel has been done with the controls. So you were actively contributing.
Exactly. So it's the other side. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but I wouldn't, it's like I don't fully experience that as stress-free, because like at the end of the day, you might call, like, whether it's stress or not, like that depends on how you perceive it and experience that. But there is expectation that I experience, like, that thing works because it's being used by folks and they use it in production, and sure, it's like, yeah, but it's open source, it's this and that's, like, yes. And yet we chose to create it, ship it, maintain it, and that comes with, it should work. And sure, like, there's always options of, well, if this version doesn't work, if you're stuck, there is a bug, go version back. Like, there's always option, but it's not like, it's not a thing where I would say, you know what, I don't care.
Sure.
No, of course. I think about it at times, and there's, like, it goes through your mind, and there's PRs, and like, yeah, like, because even you say we accept PRs, well, there you go. Then you will have 20 PRs, and now what, right? And you also want to give it back to these folks because they spend their time doing something, and now you want to give it back and accept it and acknowledge them. And as you said, like, you don't just want to merge everything because conflicts, reasons, maybe it's misaligned, maybe it doesn't fit, maybe there are bugs. At the end of the day, it's also an important thing to experience that there is a group of folks who will help and they submit a PR and leave. And you, who maintain the tool, are left to maintain it until the end of days, or until as long as you're on project, right? So even that is also an interesting thing. Exactly, Joel, as you say, like, how do you deal with different code style? Because maybe somebody codes differently, but they will submit the PR and then leave, and then you're stuck with that. You need to maintain the different code styles across the project. So is it a good thing or bad? Like, how much leeway do you give, and where is the balance between trying to align it across the board to make it easier for yourself and your team, or make it really easy for the folks who do a PR? So there's so it's not a trivial game. It's a really interesting dynamic and experience to be a part of open source.
For sure. And I'm going to raise the classic example of BMPjs, which I think those people who are implementing stuff with client-side web parts on SPFX for SharePoint Online, they know about the BMPjs nowadays, and it's grown to be de facto way pretty much of hitting the APIs because it's the easiest way to do that. But back in like 4 years ago, well, Patrick started creating that before we went public with SPFX because we knew that that's coming, and we had an interesting discussion at the time. So SPFX is going to be announced in May back in 2016, and he started creating that in January because we knew that what's going to be announced. But it took like 2 to 3 years until it broke the 10 billion requests in a month. We are adding a header in the what is it called? Header entry on the requests. So we're able to then detect without understanding who's using and how it's being used, but we're able to measure the usage. So using that header, we're able to then see that is it hitting what kind of ratio and how is it actually being used. But it took like years to get to the 1 billion. And then he was always comparing that to the PnP site score and the PnP Powershell. And why is BMPjs not being used? And all of a sudden it started to be used. And then
CLI we're not even there, not even near 1 billion, not to mention 1 million even so.
Yeah, BMPjs is in, I think
still waiting there, still waiting for it to pick up.
I need to actually double check.
You can look at it as you are making people that were traditionally using PowerShell to turn into CLI as well. I'm a good example of that. I looked at it and initially thought, that's a good initiative, but probably not for me. I don't need it. And then you start offering other tools like the project upgrade. And I was like, I really need this tool now. It's not even competing anymore because it's just offering different things that I don't get from, for example, PnP PowerShell. And I end up using it as well for other things.
Yeah, it's a matter of preference. Somebody might actually always ask that's a classic discussion. Why is Microsoft providing this many different tools and services and products which are competing between each other?
This is not Microsoft.
Yeah. Why isn't Microsoft providing CLI for Microsoft 365? Good question.
No, I don't know.
Because
we cannot do everything. Because we cannot do everything.
As we are the three of us in this call, right? So, but it's actually we've been talking about this one as well, like actually quite a few times as well, and some of the other.
Well, we have an audience. You know that, right? You know there is an audience. Like we're. It's just three of us in a call. But there's like people listening to this.
So, but there's let's say that there's always a differences between is it a Microsoft owned or is it not Microsoft owned, and is it community owned or is it not Microsoft community owned? And actually, the community owned projects, if they're widely being used and there's a large enough group of people who are maintaining them, they have more, let's say, future-proven options than necessarily the corporate-owned open source, because corporate-owned open source, well, if it's MIT license, it could be relocated somewhere else. But it's one of those things where quite often they have much stricter rules and they have a much stricter processes. And then all of a sudden that team is being relocated to somewhere else. Who's going to take over it? When it's community-owned tooling, it's different. Of course, the ultimate goal would be combining both of these as the right combination. But I think it's a matter of learning those practices and adapting the right ways of doing working. So,
yeah, I think at the end of the day, especially if you look at from point of view from folks who want to use a tool or an SDK, like at the end of the day, I would say they would care less whether that's community maintained or Microsoft maintained or whoever, as long as it's reliable and works. And sure, you could make a point that community things are more reliable because they're less dependent on the internal. Maybe not. But I guess I think you could whatever argument you bring, you could always take it two ways, right? Because you could say, well, if it isn't anyone's job, well, what about the SLA? Well, it's the best effort whenever somebody has time. If the community decided to go away,
awesome supportability, because best effort could mean it's always support and there's massive amount of people helping like that. Because hey, best effort doesn't say that it's bad or it's good, but it's still it's different than having a official support. So whatever official support actually means nowadays, because
an SLA. that you can expect to have a response by X amount of time, and there is somebody who's being basically tasked to do it.
Which is interesting as well. How many open source projects in general has a public SLA?
I don't think any.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Well, I mean, there would be an extreme. I don't know of any.
Yeah. Because well, anyway, that's an interesting philosophical discussion. So maybe it's better not to deep dive there too much. Now, Joel, as we're running out of running out of time, but still we're trying to keep this as short as possible as well, but not too short, of course. And so we've been getting some feedback as we keep on babbling.
Just on time, just right.
But anything interesting, just on your day-to-day work, what are you actually working nowadays? And anything interesting you can talk about? Is it Teams? Is it SPFX? Is it Viva? Is it what kind of things are you actually
everything?
Doing? Yes.
The last few months has been more Azure Functions, actually, background processes that just interact with mostly SharePoint and Teams.
Is it governance then? So automating things, or
one was like a governance app that it's basically an application that is based on the PnP provisioning engine. And the SharePoint side with a list to capture requests, and the backend, which is just an Azure function to process everything. Again, the PnP provisioning. You can say anything else. Other than that, it's been SPFX, although I don't touch it for, well, actually I did last week, but I was not touching it for like 2 months, and I was really missing it already. But yeah, that's just mostly web parts, extensions. I haven't done much with Viva, other than 1 or 2 POCs. I mean, at the end of the day, it's SPFX. There's not that much different with it, which is an advantage. So good job on that.
Do not introduce always a new model. Just piggyback on existing one, and voila, all of your existing developers are already up to date. So
it works. Don't break it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that's mainly it. A lot of Azure Functions recently. A lot of around authentication as well. So pattern we have seen was for a lot of clients was applications they had for years, which were not even secure, which eventually led me to even do some sessions around authentication from PnP Powershell, and end up building a base solution for a function where I can just, in 15 minutes, spin up a new function project with everything in place, authentication, even already PnP Powershell built into it and connecting to SharePoint using certificates and all that. So eventually end up growing that. I will see if I'll move that into the community side of the house. I don't know if I will be able to, because I kind of see that as an advantage for against competitions, because I can just get a function up and running in 15 minutes. So I may get denial there, but let's see. I will try. But that's mainly it.
Later on that one, actually, that is a good example of a so-called blueprints, which we definitely need to start looking more in the future, basically. So we do have a lot of samples. We have like overwhelming amount of samples. And this, if I remember correctly, just out of curiosity, 1 second. If I check out the queue in the web parts, I think I can see, well, I think 42. There was 25 which were processed during the weekend or pretty soon. It's just amazing amount of samples which we are getting, which is absolutely awesome, because those are super helpful to get started. But then there's always the other side of the discussion, which is, okay, how do I do officially this thing? Do we have a blueprint, a real documented model how to achieve certain things rather than just samples? And that's potential direction where we will be investing in the future related on Viva and SharePoint and Teams and all of that. So I'm going to introduce those. But at the same time, those are pretty hard because there's so many models, so many patterns, so many things. So how do we decide which are the ones.
Egos.
And opinions, yes, exactly.
Yes.
So preferences and yeah, exactly.
Well, and I guess you could even make a point, right, that at some point someone's opinion is a USP, right? Like that is how you separate yourself from others, because you have an opinion, you have opinionated way of doing things, and that is based on your experience and knowledge. And there is no, like, at some point you will get to the point where one isn't better than other.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe at some point that opinion that is saying, no, we're doing things that way because X, Y, and Z, and that is the benefit you get with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. I think that's pretty much it for now. So thank Joel. Now I'm doing the UK style, American style pronunciation of your name. But thank you for joining us.
Better than French.
Nothing wrong with French. What's wrong with French?
Of course not.
Hello, French audience. Don't. No, just kidding. You Dutch people, you're always like that. Never mind. I didn't say anything.
Joel isn't French. Joel isn't French. There you go.
I think it's pronounced very similar.
Or is it? Okay. Okay.
Anyway,
well, we're gonna.
Who else can we insult? Which country can we still? So, but thank you, Joel, for joining us. Really good discussion and to understand your career and also the transition from Portugal to UK. It's actually really interesting, and actually knowing that it's okay. The post-Brexit world in UK seems to be working still okay. So it hasn't been completely chaotic.
It depends.
But thank you for joining, and after this we'll jump then together with Waldek on the articles for those who are watching the video and listening to the podcast. But thank you, Joel. We'll be definitely in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you
Cheers.
for having me. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. To have more and more people who are passionate about helping others. And that, I think it was a really interesting discussion related on where is that coming from? Why are you doing that? Because we still keep on having those questions. But more and more, actually, it's cool to see that more and more people are contributing and finding onto community channels and then contributing on the new samples. Just before we started recording this one, we were checking the community call agendas for SharePoint Framework call as an example, where we covered the Microsoft Viva as well. And we're booking already in February next year, which is actually pretty wild. It's just
yeah, so we are already 4 months ahead, or three months, yeah, 3.5 months. Yeah.
Now there are free spots, for
Which
example, 13th of December, because that's the holiday season. But still, it's
so if you're watching this show before December 13, 2021, and there's something you would like to show related to SharePoint framework development, client-side development on M365,
Viva connections.
There you go. Let us know. We can get you a spot.
Yes. That's a good advertisement. Anyway, so let's actually jump on the articles of this week. So let's actually do that, and let me share my screen. It is that screen, unless I'm completely mistaken. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Woohoo. Cool. So first of all, it's the end of, or it was the end of the October. So there's always the monthly summaries then from the Microsoft Teams and the ODSP Yammer, whatever. We'll cover that name pretty soon. It was actually a pretty long list of things. But Microsoft Teams has its own summary as well. So what's new in Microsoft Teams? And there's a few things to actually call out in here. First of all new whiteboard in Microsoft Teams. And whiteboard is something which is really kind of designed to enhance the meeting experience, so building stuff together and actively working on things together in the meeting. And it's actually pretty cool. It is an awesome example of a really cool meeting application where you can then collaborate live together. So really, really cool stuff. Now, live transcript, unscheduled meeting using Meet Now and channel meetings. That's really cool as well. We took a screenshot out of our transcript and we'll put it in the blog post. There was some funny stuff. What it was transcript and was taken from Finglish, at least. So.
Well, but then the interesting thing, right? Like this, the one thing that everybody will miss is what was actually said, because people will see what was captured, but what was actually said? Like what led to this? So
Let's keep it teaser. So I think that's good.
Yes.
And then a lot of additional features, capabilities. Some of these have been already mentioned in the previous blog post as well, but presentation mode is coming out. I think this is really, really cool as well, because it really makes it easier to do professional look style presentations. So you don't have to use OBS or any other professional broadcasting engine. You can just use PowerPoint, which is really, really cool. Jax, which some people who are listening or watching this might know, Jax actually moved to a different organization, and this organization is working on exactly on this thing. So, which is really cool.
Really cool.
All the best for Jax as well. Now, and a lot of other stuff on the devices, capabilities, features, management, all of that stuff. So a lot of every single month there's something new, which is really, really cool. Think about, by the way, the release notes, which we would have if we would release those products once every 3 years, like we did in the past. So the amount of stuff.
To ship a book. We would have
Exactly.
Well, I mean, basically the same way. I don't know if you recall that in 97, 2000, when there was a new version of Office, like it would have thousands of functions and options, and it was really the time when we would get these really like phone book thick books that would explain everything in depth, and which you basically had to read in order to master it.
And then you were a specialist. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that's basically the same, just then cut in pieces, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, which one is better? Well, I think getting the features out faster is, it's different.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then there's a blog post related on preview of feedback for Microsoft Teams now available. So preview of feedback for Microsoft Teams now available. I'm trying to pause preview of feedback for Microsoft Teams now available. Now it's actually the right way of saying that. So basically the new user voice, so where people can actually provide input and feedback and votes related on what they need to have, is available for Microsoft Teams. I know that every single organization is setting up now the new ways of getting this feedback in. I guess we'll have a similar thing for OneDrive, SharePoint, Viva relatively soon as well. So that should be coming up. I don't know actually. So, but it should be coming up, hopefully, at least.
I can imagine people will expect something, a place where they can share their feedback.
We want to have a place where we can collaborate and on ideas and collect that feedback in, because that's crucial. Every single product what we do is based on the input from the customers. We shouldn't be building something which nobody needs. So we need to build something what people want to use. So. Or we should be focusing on building that. Now, that's not always the case. No, never mind. So, how the Microsoft 365 App Compliance Program help enable secure Teams app ecosystem. So there's the Microsoft 365 App Compliance Program, which is all about getting your application certified or more detailed analyzed. It will basically validate the company details, security details, the privacy details, and all of that stuff in a much more detailed way. So there's a structural way of doing that. And those applications are then being marked with a higher, let's say, certification, and those are being then exposed in the UX as a higher certified or higher value and more detailed analyzed as they're available in the store. So really good stuff as well, because then quite often customers are considering that, okay, I will allow only those solutions which have that option enabled, but not necessarily those which are not Microsoft certified. Of course, the baseline validation in the store is double checking the baseline, and this is already additional security layer and the certification on top of it. And by the way, if you're a partner, right now at least this is free. So there's you need to allocate time to do that, but it's not something which you need to pay for. So it's actually Microsoft is providing resources and helping on the process, which is really, really cool. I'm watching your face, Waldek. It's still a free.
Yeah, I think there is a part. So I think there are different levels in which you can be attested, and one of them requires a third-party review of your app, and that costs money.
Yes, that will cost money. That is true. Yes, absolutely. But something to check into for sure. So
definitely.
Huge. Then we had a new Microsoft Teams features, improve call and meeting quality. So basically new options, for example, noise suppression available in the call details, so in the devices. And this basically what it means is that as I'm talking to my microphone in here, between that moving to your ear, Waldek, there's going to be more noise removal real time, which is actually pretty wild when you think of it.
I'm waiting still, like with all this tech, Babelfish, like how long is it going to take before you can talk to me in Finnish and I will hear you in English or in Dutch and the other way around?
That is available. So I was just having
on Teams?
I think it's actually in Teams, yes. So there was a discussion with Tetsuan and David last week. Tetsuan speaking Japanese and David speaking English.
Seriously?
Yeah. That's actually pretty cool.
That is really cool. I haven't really experienced that. I never had an excuse, so that would be actually interesting to hear. Like, how does that sound?
That's true. That is so true. So we need to test it out.
Didn't know.
Anyway, concentrating on articles.
Totally.
Should we test it out right now? No, just kidding.
Yeah.
So then the Ignite is coming this week, depending, of course, when you're listening to the podcast or watching the video. But a lot of stuff happening in the Microsoft Ignite Fall. It is starting on Tuesday, closing on Thursday. There's quite a interesting set of sessions coming up on the Teams side, covering the latest on the Teams and what's happening there, and as to expert sessions as well. And then in the same way as in the Teams side, there's a sessions in the SharePoint OneDrive, Viva, List, Syntax Stream, and Visio and more. So that's a pretty interesting organization name if that would be the case. But a lot of stuff happening and a lot of announcement. First of all, of course, Satya's keynote is the primary keynote. Just to call out that one as well. On 2nd of November, we will have the platform community call, but we'll actually have live watching Satya's keynote together, so we can comment on the call, what I was saying, and is it cool, and all of that stuff. So if you want to have a watch on the keynote and you want to have live comments from others who are watching the keynote, that's a great way of actually having that. So to join the call, no other program in that call as well. And then there's a cool keynote. Where is it? So from Jeff Deeper, where we have a lot of people actually joining. So there's Lincoln, Ian Todd, Manipeni, Navyot, Kathy, and Yina. That's a 30-minute session, which is packed full of new demos and announcements. And might have been some demos which have been prepared people in this call. Hopefully they will work. I guess, but it's recorded one, so I guess it went well. So, just kidding. And then we're spilling the beans. That's what happens. And then the one thing, if you're interested on the Viva connection extensibility, again, this is on 2nd of November. So on the day as this podcast and video blog is getting released, and there's the one day before is the getting started Microsoft Viva connection extensibility. So that's on 75 minutes on November 3rd. So really cool stuff as well. A lot of other stuff as well. A lot of on-demand sessions and cool stuff. Now, then we had the what? Sorry?
Tune in.
Yes. What's the Ignite? Ignite is cool. Good. SharePoint Roadmap, Pitstop, October 2021. Let's start with the mighty. We're in a Halloween mood.
Yes, it's all about like getting the spirits set correctly for the mood for.
But now it's already November, so this kind of a last month's news, right? So just kidding. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so Kathy Du has a discussion with Mark in the intro zone, which is basically the series around the latest in the ODSP and Teams and Viva and Yammer and all of that stuff. So good stuff from Mark and Chris on that. And Kathy is the owner of the Hub, for example, the Hub of Hubs, so Hub Associations. So they talk about that one. She did recently do a really cool community demo on that as well, and explaining what are the options there, because the Hub of Hubs gives you the opportunities then creating information architecture, a bit more broadly information architecture. And then a lot of additional announcements from the SharePoint side as well, term store as well, and adjustments around the images. This is actually kind of interesting. So you can edit the images directly in SharePoint and in OneDrive, including the web browser, by the way. So as we have seen the Google moving away from the free photo business, now then there's investments in here as well. It's kind of interesting to see the competition and direction, but it's great to have all of these features available for sure. So Really cool stuff.
I guess it's also interesting part, right? Because like these are pretty simple things that you might want to do directly when you create a page, right? So you add image and you want to exactly. So it's not very advanced things you would do with high-end products. You just want to do simple things.
Yeah.
So you should be able to do them directly in context of your work.
Yeah, exactly. Makes perfect sense. A lot of other stuff as well. So a lot of cool stuff and new features available. And there's a bonus tree, Halloween 2021 and TV entertainment suggestions.
So if you have spare time and you like to watch stuff, check out this post.
Absolutely. Now, then Robbie Williams, who's a IM365 cloud advocate from Waldek's team. Then that's the right way of saying that, right? He's on the same team. So
he's my colleague, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So learn how to extend Microsoft Viva connection. So basically those extensibility options. And there's a new learning path for Viva connections available. I think it was 1.5 hours and like 90 minutes or so. Overall,
it depends how fast you read and
but that's
type.
Kind of the high-level estimate with exercises and all of that, and really good work on this one, by the way, Waldek. So Waldek has created the learning path, and then Robbie created the video, promotional video, and a blog post related on that. So really, really cool stuff, for sure. So thank you for that. Then there's all data property changes in Microsoft 365 usage report API in Microsoft Graph. So these APIs are still in beta, so this is completely fine. Beta APIs can be adjusted here and there because they're kind of a plan to get into GA, so version 1 endpoint of the graph. So some adjustments in there. Not going to deep dive on what they are because you can have a look on that from the notes as well. Now, Tom had a really cool blog post related on the event that the developers can now charge money from the Microsoft Teams app in the App Store. So basically, this is the relatively new announcement where you can actually have the buy a subscription option available for your application directly in the App Store, rather than being redirected to your web UI and then continuing that acquisition process. And then you can order and provide the set of orders available. And that blog post, unfortunately, image isn't visible here. But Tom Rogan he's writing a lot of like really good clarification what things mean and what are the options and improvements in the teams for that. So, and in general, good blog to follow as well. Liam Cleary had a managing Microsoft Teams using Microsoft Graph PowerShell, so learnings on that one again. So starting off using the Graph PowerShell, Microsoft Graph PowerShell SDK. What are the scopes? How to grant the scopes? Yes, I passed the test. And then what are the operations we can actually do there? How do we do those operations? So really, really good stuff as well. And then Sergey Sergeyev has a SPFX fast serve with SPFX 1.13 support. So SharePoint Framework 1.13, which is for Microsoft Viva, Microsoft Teams, and SharePoint, was released 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, yes. The SPFX fast serve is a kind of an add-on capability. It simplifies development, and something what was really cool here, he has implemented a new NT-ROC serve plugin. So basic idea here is that if you are implementing Viva connection mobile experiences, you can actually do debugging and testing with your mobile phones from the local host. And that's actually really, really cool. So we kind of take advantage of NT-ROC to do the request from here to your local dev box. So that's actually
without
really,
having
really cool.
a proxy on your phone or anything else, emulators. No, you can directly test it from your phone against the locally debuggable code on your machine.
Yeah, really good stuff on that one. I added some notes also for our internal engineering team that, hey, maybe we should have a look on this.
How about that? Yeah.
How about, thank you for pushing. And that's one of the things which is super great about this community is that we're pushing all of these ideas, what we're seeing, then we can adapt also in the product, because it's not that everything should be given from Microsoft. It's also that community gives an ideas back. So really, really cool. Thank you, Sergey, on that one. And then Wartman had a cool blog post related on working with MSAL and the multiple Azure AD accounts in a React single page application. A lot of MSAL, SPA, but it's a good title, but it...
You mean MSAL in AD with a spa?
Yeah. Yeah, but technically going through the different option and how to do that and how to make things happen. Vartiman works for Valo Solutions, and they're evaluating different options in here. And it's great that we're seeing then those day-to-day work being surfaced as a blog post on other people to benefit as well. So really cool stuff as well. So thank you, Vartiman, on that. I'm going to stop presentation. So what's going to happen this week, Waldek?
Ignite.
Getting ready for the live session.
So
don't mess it up.
Exactly. So on Wednesday we're presenting live. It's not pre-recorded. We are presenting live about extending Viva connections. So that is one.
Why is it actually us? Why is it you? What are you?
Why is it me?
Well, you created the learning path, so
yes, yeah, exactly. So I spent some time working on the learning path, and why you?
Well, I'm one of the PMs in the SharePoint framework engineering, so responsible of making sure that 1.13 works. And if the Viva experiences don't work, I'm the person to blame. So it's okay.
There you go, right?
And
so
of
it's
course,
So in other words, like there's for everybody who want to know more about it, who have things to ask. It's a perfect place and time to join us live.
Yeah.
And ask stuff. Like you'll have the unique chance to see Vesa code live. He will really do that live. Like we didn't pre-record anything, so there will be typos, mistakes, like him trying to find the right keys on his
coding nowadays. So yes.
On his key without signs.
Yeah. Oh, you mean this one, which doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's where's the special character? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Where's the accolade, right? Yeah. So there will be a cool thing for everybody to join and to ask things live, interact with us. There'll be on Wednesday, November the 3rd.
Yep.
Other than that, business as usual, working on CLI. We have quite a few PRs to go through, so there's really cool. And I guess other than that, planning a few things, internal things that we're thinking about. What can we do? How can we help? So we're bouncing some ideas around that. More to come soon.
Yeah. And pretty much same for me, of course, the ignite, and then running the normal day-to-day business. Now, it's personally, it feels like 1.13 is now out. We can actually finally start now looking around. Okay, so now some time to breathe and then focus on the impactful stuff as well. So not just running and shipping and running and shipping, and now we can focus on improving. So helping with the videos, helping with samples and impactful samples and all of that stuff. So should be really good. But I guess that's it then. So thank you everybody for listening or watching, depending on your preferred format. And we'll be back within a week. Before
on Wednesday,
we go, though,
we will be back on Wednesday.
That is true. Wednesday this week, join the Ignite. It's free again, live session. I will be coding. I will be writing some code. Luckily, it's code.
You don't get to see that often.
Waldek has written the code already, but I'm just kind of using that code. But still, it's coming from my computer, and then
so it's actually even worse, right? Because now it will actually be a double thing, right? It will be my code, you coding my samples. So
yes,
double check. Did I write something that works, and can you code following my instructions?
Exactly. A lot of challenge for Wednesday. And now during the week as well, please remember PnP hashtag, PnP weekly hashtag. So for marking any of the articles or just adding a comment on your primary tweet or something, so we will follow up and we'll find your awesome content, because that's always a challenge for us as well, finding all of the awesome blog posts which people are tweeting and sharing. But I guess that's it. See you hopefully on Wednesday. Wednesday evening on European time, Wednesday, Thursday night time in APAC, and then Wednesday morning Pacific time. So we'll be there and answering questions. But that's it for this one. Thanks, everybody. Cheers. Thank you, Joel, one more time as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.